Real quick before I put this up, I guess somebody messed with my camera settings and now the camera quality is not the greatest, but the information is still good, so I'm gonna put this video up. I got a couple of videos like this, but like I said, the information's still good, so I think I'm gonna put it up anyway. Hello there, people of the internet. I've made a couple of shorts and made a couple of posts over the past, I don't know, however long I've been doing this. And I've noticed a trend. We'll go ahead and we'll call it a trend. I've noticed a trend of people going into the comments and not really understanding what it is that I'm saying. I'll bring up something like, hey, this is our particular situation, and so as a result, what is the best thing to have for this particular situation? And then I'll have a bunch of people go into the comments and they'll tell me, this particular cartridge with this particular platform is adequate enough to do most of the things that most people would need a cartridge to be able to do. And I understand that to an extent. I mean, there is the arguing point of having a general purpose, do most jobs, platform and cartridge combination that most people would need to come across, and that's one of the reasons why firearms like, say, the AR and 9mm Glocks and just firearms of that nature, that's one of the reasons why those are so popular, because the average person can have most jobs handled with those particular projectiles. And so I'll have the people that go into the comments and they'll talk about that particular mindset on how you can have like one general purpose, do most jobs thing. And I'll tell them that's not the discussion here. The discussion is what is the best, and that's what I want to talk about in this particular video, because adequate does not mean best, and people seem to be confusing that. Adequate, if a cartridge is adequate for a job because it's adequate for doing most jobs, odds are it's not the best choice for any one particular job. Like, for example, here in the United States, if you need just a rifle cartridge to handle most things that most people would come across, odds are you're going to pick either a 5.56 or a 308, depending on what it is that you are wanting to do in particular. It seems like a lot of people pick 5.56 whenever they just need like a general defensive rifle, but if they're going for like hunting purposes or distance shooting or anything like that, they'll opt out for a 308. But there's so much more that goes into the concepts of just picking a cartridge because it's adequate. I think a lot of it has to do with price point as well. It doesn't matter what you have to say, price point plays a dramatically large role in what people decide to pick. If something is cheap and effective enough to do a job, that's probably what they're going to be going for. However, you show me pretty much any job, and I can show you a cartridge that will do better than either 5.56 or 308. Like, literally any job. But the discrepancy with that is 5.56 and 308 do most jobs well enough for an affordable price, and that's why they're so popular. But like I said, adequate doesn't mean best. If we have a particular situation, then maybe something like a 308 might actually be best. Like, for example, if we're shooting, I don't know, a fairly large animal, not necessarily like a bison size, but maybe something like, I don't know, elk. If we're shooting elk-sized game at 500 yards, we have ourselves a 308. That would probably get the job done, assuming that you could do your part and put that bullet, assuming that you're using the right bullet. Bullet selection and bullet type absolutely matters with everything that you do. But if you take that bullet and you put it in the right place with a 308 at that distance, you'll probably be okay. But I would argue in that particular case, you might want to bump it up to something a little bit more powerful, a little bit more adequate, a little bit more velocity so you have a little bit less drop. Make sure that you use high BC bullets, and if you're using high BC bullets, odds are they're going to be pretty long. And if you're using long bullets, then the case of a 308 just can't really effectively push them all that great. So maybe bumping up to something like a 30-06 or maybe even a 300 Winchester Magnum might be a better option for that particular case. Now, 308, absolutely adequate does not mean that it's the best. Or let's say we're just clinking steel at that 500 yards. Maybe 308 would be a good adequate cartridge for that particular situation. 500 yards is absolutely within the realms of what 308 can do. Now we start bumping out to 1,000 yards. Oh, dude, you could absolutely touch out at 1,000 yards with 308, but it's getting difficult and it's getting tricky. Touching at 1,000 yards with a 308 is a lot harder than my comments section seems to think. And if you don't think that it is, then I recommend that you try it, because it takes a lot of skill. If you've done it and you can do it with any real consistent regularity, then you are absolutely way more skilled than the average person. But 1,000 yards with a 308, that's difficult. Now, if we start looking at other cartridges that, say, have less wind deflection and less drop, higher BC bullets, more capabilities out at longer ranges, then we might start to see where adequate isn't best. As a matter of fact, I have made shots with not this rifle, but this cartridge out at 1,500 yards. I had a sporterized one of these, and I ended up trading it for a non-sporterized one. But that sporterized one had a really, really nice scope on it, and it was quite the nice rifle. But ultimately, I do like my intact wood and steel military surplus guns, so I ended up going with this one. But this right here is a 6.5 by 55 Swede, a Carl Gustaf rifle. And most of the time, whenever these cartridges are being bought factory, they're actually significantly undercharged, and they underperform what 6.5 by 55 is actually supposed to perform at, just for a liability reason with modern manufacturers. But if you get military surplus ammo that is in good condition, especially ones that are designed to run inside of these rifles, like military surplus from Sweden specifically for these rifles, these things are dramatically and stupidly accurate. And I was able to hit out at 1,500 yards with my old sporterized 6.5 on several occasions. Granted, I'm not the best of shot. I did miss a bunch of rounds, but I was able to clink, I think it was a 24-inch gong at that particular time. But I also tried it with a 308, and I couldn't hit the damn thing to save my life. And the biggest reason for that is simply because of wind. 308 is just not all that great and not all that effective, especially with those small, not great BC bullets that you're going to be firing at those long distances, because you have to fire those small bullets in order to get any real velocity so your round doesn't just plummet and drop off in terms of velocity and just fall like a rock. Hitting at 1,500 yards with a 308 is significantly difficult. It's possible, but bullet design and the limitations of that particular case are just not great. So this is an example of probably what I would consider the best cartridge to be running at that distance, assuming that you're using a properly loaded 6.5 Swede round and not one of the undercharged, modern-made factory things done for liability. So another really, really good example of adequate doesn't mean best. 308, absolutely adequate. It can do the job. Doesn't mean that it's the best. Oh, actually, here's a really good one now that I'm thinking about it. 22 long rifle. I get a lot of people telling me that 22 long rifle is the absolute best cartridge. And I ask them, other than price and availability, why? And they'll give me a long list about things that the 22 long rifle is capable of doing. And I'll tell them, that doesn't mean it's the best. That means it's adequate for doing that job. If it's adequate for doing a job, that does not mean that it is the best at doing that job. If you show me literally anything at all other than price, availability, and maybe carrying capacity, because 22 long rifle is extraordinarily small, every single cartridge out there outperforms that 22 long rifle. This is one of those examples where people will flock to it because it is cheap and available, and it can do the job that most people would need a cartridge to be able to do. Now, granted, there's a bunch of things that people push 22 long rifle like way beyond what it's supposed to be intended for, but that's probably an argument that is beyond the scope of this video. Yeah, there's my little rant. I wanted to make this video just because I feel like this video needed to be made. Adequate is not best. If I say this is the best thing for this particular job in this particular situation, and then somebody says, no, this is the best thing because it can do the most overall stuff. And I'm like, no, that is adequate at the stuff that it can do. It's not the best at any particular job. It's just the best at being adequate at most jobs. And there's a very, very big distinct difference between those ideologies. So thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. And you guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.